So recently, Joe Rogan got himself in a little bit of controversy by claiming that video games were a waste of time. Um, on his show, he said that.
Seek refuge in drugs or video games or something that stimulates them. And video games are a real problem. They're a real problem. You know why? Because they're fucking fun. And you
Addictive.
don't, yeah, well, I have a real problem with them. And you do them and they're real exciting, but you don't get anywhere.
Right.
It's like you could do like martial arts, right? You could learn jujitsu, you get obsessed by jujitsu, and then 3 years later, you're like an elite jujitsu athlete. You're entering in competitions. You're a purple belt.
You're moving up.
Yeah, you're doing well.
Right.
You're thinking like, I might be able to open my own school one
You
day.
got confidence.
Yeah, if I have 100 students and those 100 students are paying me X amount of dollars per month, I can make a living. Holy shit, I can have this would be amazing. And then you see your jujitsu school and your jujitsu instructor has all these students and drives a Mercedes and he's got a nice family and like, that's the future. This way you're doing something exciting and fun and you don't. Or you could just be playing fucking video games. 3 years later, you could be that same kid just playing video games, waiting for the next whatever the fuck game is, next Xbox game to come out, and you're gonna waste your time.
You have children.
Yeah.
I have children, and it's a big battle in the house.
Yes.
And my kids, I don't know if you're going through this, but my kids are now saying, "Well, Dad, this guy made all this money with this video game. That he's
That's
a man."
real too. That's
right?
real too now.
So like that's 1 in a billion, kid.
I don't know if it's 1 in a billion, but look, I heard the same argument about comedy. My own parents were like, "Do you know how few people make it as a comedian?" I was like, "Okay, does anybody make it? Somebody makes it, right? They figure out how to do it. They make a living. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Just stop. Look, I know what I'm doing." I was real lucky that my parents were not around very much, so I didn't get much advice. So I figured it out myself. So there was no one telling me I couldn't do it.
Got it.
So I think the big thing with this whole Joe Rogan controversy over video games is kind of funny because if you listen to the entire clip, you kind of hear that he contradicts himself. And if you listen to Joe Rogan, that's just kind of what he does. He seems to have one big take on something, and within it can even be the next show or the next sentence he says, he completely contradicts himself. Uh, but he does go in later on to talk about how video games are like a real addiction for him. Like they have a video game room in the back of their studio, and he doesn't even go back there anymore because of how bad it was. Apparently, his producer Jamie would tell him, "Dude, I can't play with you. You game way too much. It's a big issue." And I think he's just one of those people who takes things to the extreme. A majority of us are looking at this kind of clip and we're like, "What are you talking about? Video games aren't that big of a problem." But I think to those select few, it is. It's just like Terry Crews. He wants to ban pornography. He wants to ban it because he had a pornography problem. And to the extent that Terry Crews tore a bicep to jack off. I mean, so yeah, for people who are just straight in the middle, we're like, I porn's okay, whatever, it's not a problem. And I think that's the thing with Joe Rogan, and you kind of notice it with like very disciplined people that either they're so regimented in their daily life that when they have something like drugs or video games or sex or something like that, they finally get to escape from all of it, and it feels completely foreign, amazing to them. So they really lean into that and they really go after that escape. Those of us who are just kind of average, we can take it or leave it. I also think there is just those people who are just completely they have the personality to get addicted to things. And that would also explain why you do have people like Joe Rogan, Terry Crews, and many like that who they get addicted to, like he goes into jujitsu and working out and things like that. You almost have to become addicted to those things to be successful in what they do. But I also think it's funny that the contradiction that there is where he says, um, well, it's more than 1 in a billion chance to make money off of it. And yeah, 100%. There is a ton of people who are on video game teams, who compete in tournaments, who make real money, money that yeah, we're pretty much unheard of to us, to people we don't know who they are. They're just average gamers who are really good at a certain game or they get on a good team. I know there's a group called like the Frag Girls who've been around for over a decade, and every one of them, they're a professional video game player. Do I have any idea what their names are? No, never. There's so many of them, but it's not one in a billion. In fact, I probably argue that in the future, the next decade, it would probably be a safer career path to be a video game player than it would be to be a comedian. And I don't say that optimistically. I'm not happy about that statement. I love both personally. But yeah, I think it's funny just how people kind of had this quick outrage to this, and it really wasn't that big of a deal. It was just Joe Rogan talking out of his ass like he normally does, which is fine. That's why we listen to Joe Rogan. He often, there again, makes comments where he's leaning one way and the very next sentence he's he's contradicting himself or speaking to the argument of his first point, and that's, yeah, it's normal when people are having conversations to do that. But the backlash that Joe Rogan took from this, from the video game world, from other people who were saying, well, my career path was uh, riddled with obstacles, and people said it was impossible as well, but I stuck to it. Joe Rogan, you're just shaming people. All these kind of people. It's I would hate being Joe Rogan. I would hate being in a position where anything and everything I said is put under a microscope, and you can't have a bad take on something. You can't have, a controversial statement. It takes a special person like Joe Rogan to be able to do it and to not go insane. But I'm curious, what are your guys' thoughts on the whole thing? Um, you with Joe? Are you against? I mean, it's kind of hard not to be or for, but what are your thoughts on video games or pornography? Or is there any activity that you think should be illegal, or should be banned, or should be something that we're monitored at? Because I mean, that would be the next step, right? Like, if it's dangerous, got to get rid of it, right? Kind of. Yeah, whatever. Um, yeah. Again, I'm really curious what your thoughts are on that.